Okay, friends, it's Abby from the future, here to apologize for the sound in this video. Really, all the way up until like the last couple of clips, the sound was whack. I don't even really know what happened, but I did obviously like fix whatever the clicking sound was. I now have a different way of recording, but I apologize for the first part of this video sounding off. Sorry. There's nothing I could do about it at this point. I truly appreciate you. I would also like to apologize because this vlog takes a major left turn at the end. Warning. I don't end up reading all of the books I say I'm going to read because I got a concussion. You can't control these things. I did end up reading the books, I just didn't vlog them. So at the end of this video, I will tell you my thoughts about the books and some more in-depth ponderings, but I didn't actually vlog my experience. Thank you all for understanding, and let's get into the video. I love romance. Adult romance novels are my comfort reads. I am absolutely obsessed with them. The characters, the stories. I love that I know it will end happily. I just love them so much. And 4 books have come out recently that are my most anticipated romances of the year. I'm going to do a reading vlog where I read all 4 of my most anticipated romance books of the year. So let's figure out what they are. The first one is Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is the 3rd and final book in the Brown Sisters trilogy. And I read Take a Hint, Danny Brown last month, and I read Get a Life, Chloe Brown at the beginning of the year. And I love both of them, so I'm very excited to pick up this one. It is the 3rd and final one, and I think it is going to be incredible. The next one I'm super excited for is Hang the Moon by Alexandria. This is the 2nd book in a series, kind of, where the first one was Written in the Stars, and I gave that one 5 stars. I absolutely loved it, and Hang the Moon follows Darcy's brother. So we meet Darcy's brother in the first one. He's kind of an integral part of Darcy and Elle's relationship, and then this follows him as he has his own romance story, and he is like a soft, squishy romantic, so I cannot wait for this one. Next is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I actually haven't read an Emily Henry book before, but I have only heard amazing things about this, as well as Beach Read, and I do plan on reading Beach Read this summer, but I want to read this romance first, because it is one of my most anticipated books of the year. And this one, as far as I know, is like a friends to enemies to friends to lovers kind of story. The last but not least is One Last Stop by Mcquisten, and I read Red, White, and Royal Blue by them earlier, or at the end of last year. The middle of last year? Oh my gosh. Time is insane. But I absolutely loved it. 5 stars, one of my all-time favorite romance novels. And this book features a sapphic romance, as well as kind of like a time travel element. So I'm very eager to get into this because it's unlike anything I've read before in terms of being a true romance novel as advertised, featuring like a sci-fi element. So interesting. Can't wait to get into it. Definitely one of my most anticipated of the year. So I think that I'm going to start with Act Your Age, Eve Brown. And I will check in with you once I've started it to give you kind of an update on what the synopsis is. All I know about this is that Eve is kind of a mess. Her family wants her to get a job, and she goes to an inn, maybe like a bed and breakfast, and then I think she hits the inn owner with her car, and then she kind of has to work at this inn and like make it up to him, and throughout the process they fall in love. I don't know. I'm so excited. So I am definitely going to love this one. Can't wait to get into it. Hi, don't mind the terrible lighting, but I wanted to update you that I am 100 pages into Act Your Age, Eve Brown, and I'm loving it. Talia Hibbert just has this way of writing that's very comedic. It's very humorous, and the characters are so relatable. They are quick-witted, and they have comebacks that are just so great. So the verbal sparring in this book is fantastic. In this book, I'll give you a better synopsis now that I started it. Eve Brown is the youngest of the Brown sisters, and she is living at home, hasn't really found her calling yet,
is kind of just like living day by day. She is kind of known in her family for not sticking with things. And her family, at the very beginning of this book, gives her an ultimatum and says, you have to get a job and keep it for a year, or we won't continue giving you your trust fund. So she is kind of freaking out. She doesn't know what she wants to do. Her parents offer positions at their jobs, but she doesn't want to do like accounting or lawyer work, which is what they do. So she kind of panics, leaves really quick, and comes across this bed and breakfast where they are hiring for a cook. Now she has had bakery experience, but not a cook experience, but she can cook. So she kind of stumbles into this interview, is very much herself. Like, she is not ashamed of coming in and just winging it. And she goes to the interview. She leaves the interview, and the owner of the Airbnb, Jacob, is this like angry, kind of uptight guy. He has autism. He wants everything to be absolutely perfect. Everything has to like perfectly fit his mold, and Eve is not that. So he's kind of in a bind. He needs some help. He runs after Eve to catch her, and she hits him with her car. And because she hits him with her car, she kind of has to be this person. She feels like she has to be the person who helps them out and cooks at this inn. So she's only planning on staying for like 2 weeks, but she, at this point, is now working in the inn. And her and Jacob just have this like really great chemistry because they both hate each other so much but think the other person is super attractive. And I think that their worlds just don't mesh. Like, they don't seem to be like destined for each other, which I think is really funny. They definitely hate a lot about the other person, and they call each other like mean names. They're very sassy. Their like verbal sparring is on point because they are so antagonistic toward each other. To be fair, Eve did hit Jacob with her car, and he's like not letting her live that down. And he is very like, he doesn't make conversation unless he feels like it's worth it. He doesn't really feel good about welcoming new people into his inn. He doesn't like what Eve is like bringing to the table, and he is just very fascinating to read about. And I am loving seeing this kind of relationship between the two of them blossom from absolute like can't stand you to now they're both really attracted to each other and are kind of building up some of that more like romantic tension. So good. Like I said, Talia Hibbert's writing is very comedic, very humorous, and I'm just really loving being in this world. I have not encountered any steam yet. We are 100 pages in, and we have not gotten like any steam, but I'm keeping my hopes up because Talia Hibbert is known for writing some steamy scenes. So I'm very excited where this book is going to go. I'm going to get back to reading. I'm spending this lazy Sunday afternoon reading in bed, and I will be here reading for a while. So hopefully I'll be able to update you once I've read 100 more pages of Act Your Age, Eve Brown.
Okay, I'm halfway through Act Your Age, Eve Brown, and it's so sweet. I am really just blown away by how much I care about these characters. I find with Talia Hibbert's writing, it's usually a little more like lush and descriptive than you might find in like a typical romance novel. Again, we're getting that in this, and I'm just really loving the way that the characters describe each other in their minds. This is told in a dual POV, which I don't think I had mentioned. So we are getting Jacob's perspective and Eve's perspective, and they're so freaking cute. But nothing has really like advanced in their romantic relationship, and I'm actually really loving that this book is kind of taking a slower approach. It is going from enemies to like kind of not hating each other to now they are like starting to bond and like really starting to get along, and they have decided to be friends. And I'm loving the kind of like mental health aspect that Talia Hibbert includes in her books because it really is adding to the element of why they would take it slowly. Jacob, as I mentioned, has autism spectrum disorder, and
he's aware of some of the social differences that he has, and his normal is different from other people's normal. And he has in the past found relationships difficult to navigate, and it's actually really like heartbreaking to read about him wondering if he and Chloe are friends because he doesn't really know what it's like to make new friends. His friends are people who've been around forever, so he doesn't understand that like social cross where it's like you've gone from just being polite and friendly to being friends. And Eve is like helping him explore that. And then Eve, on the other hand, has such a negative self image because of what her family and what she has told herself about being able to succeed at things and whether or not she's going to fail at everything she ever does. And she's just really determined not to mess up this situation and this friendship. And that is adding another element of, oh, should they, shouldn't they become romantic together? And then on top of that, he's technically her boss, which I'm glad they talked about and touched on because they do have like romantic feelings for each other. And although it wouldn't have bothered me if they just jumped into a romantic relationship, I feel like sometimes in romance novels we get that boss employee relationship and they don't ever really talk about the fact that it is inappropriate in some situations or could be inappropriate. And I'm glad that Jacob is thinking about that and has talked about it on his perspective, whether or not it is appropriate and acceptable for him to even consider pursuing this kind of relationship with his chef. So it's just so cute, very thought provoking. The writing is fantastic. And like I mentioned, not a whole lot has happened romantically, but they just went on a friend date. And it's the cutest thing. I'm so obsessed with them as characters. And they both are very spiky people, but soft on the inside and little gooey cinnamon rolls. So good. Those are my favorite types of characters who are like mean and spiky because they're trying to protect themselves. But as you get to know them and develop their character, they're genuinely beautiful, sweet, loving people. I'm so excited to keep reading this book. So I'm going to get back to it. I am 200 pages in and there's like 375. So I will update you when I'm like 3/4 of the way through. But I'm loving it. I am now 3/4 of the way through After Age Eve Brown. And I'm loving it. I love them as a couple. I'm absolutely obsessed with both Eve and Jacob and the way that they like have developed this relationship with each other and the way that they play off of each other. And they banter even in the like steamy moments, which we have gotten some steamy moments. Oh my goodness. Talia Hibbert just like whips those moments out and makes it absolutely perfect. But on top of that, we've gotten a lot of character development in the last 100 pages. So, on top of their romantic relationship, obviously developing a little bit, we have gotten more of a discussion about their backgrounds. So, we have now heard Eve talk about her history with pursuing a performing arts degree, and she says over and over again that she failed. And people say, "Oh, like you're such a great singer, you're such a great actor." And she's like, "Well, if I'm such a great actor or singer, then why did I fail at performing arts school?" But then as we dig a little deeper, we find out we have this great discussion about the discrimination against different body types, people that are different in the performing arts field. And she makes this great discussion, this great comment about how she was sick of playing the comedic relief because she was heavier than all the other girls who auditioned, and she was sick of being the sidekick because she wasn't skinny and white. And I just really love that discussion, and I agree. I think especially in theater, which is, the only area that I really have any stake in, I think that that arena is the perfect arena to be more acceptable to people of different body types, people who are not the traditional view of what a leading character should be. And I totally felt for her in those moments. And it really endeared her to me because she does read in some aspects as like a spoiled brat. And she's very open about that. She says, maybe I am a spoiled brat. Like, I have a trust fund. I've always had money. But you get to see the more humanizing aspects of her in parts like that, where she talks about, her dreams, she doesn't believe that they were achievable. And she believes that she failed because she stood up for herself and said, this isn't right and I'm not accepting it anymore. And I just think that that really tugged at my heartstrings and made me see she isn't someone who has failed at everything. She's someone who sees a moment and rather than push through, she takes a stand and says, I'm not doing this anymore, and walks away. And I think that that was a really beautiful, distinct difference that we needed to be made. And then you're seeing her, she talks about how she puts on this persona of someone who's bored and gives up because she doesn't want her family to think or realize that she failed at something. And she isn't really great at school. Academics have never been easy for her. She puts in the effort in failed classes. And that was really heartbreaking to read about. And then on top of that, she now believes that if something comes easy to her, that it is not where she's meant to be because she hasn't found what she wants. And so her life at this cottage as the cook is coming easily and she's really enjoying it. And so now she's starting to doubt whether or not that's something she should be doing or if it's just like a fun thing. Because she now thinks that anything good you have to work hard for and you have to like be miserable. And I think anybody in this like millennial, like Gen Z age could really connect with that idea of, it's been ingrained in our brains that we're supposed to be miserable and that we work so that we can have the weekends free. And I think it's admirable that she's trying to find something that she really enjoys. And then when she finds it, she doesn't know what to do with it because she has always been told that life is hard work. I don't know. I'm absolutely loving E's character now. The scenes, I can't even look at you. I can't even look at you. The scenes are so good. But Jacob, as a character, I just love, he's so prickly, he's so sassy, and he knows what he wants. But once he decides what he's wanted, he kind of fixates on that. And so he is like trying really hard to let Eve make choices, let Eve lead, because he's afraid that he is going to kind of take over everything because of his neurodivergence. He is thinking, oh, this isn't normal. But Eve just gets him and he gets Eve, and it's really just a beautiful combination of characters. I am only about 75 pages away from the end. I'm very sad because I want this book to last longer. But I am going to finish it today, and I will update you when I finish it, and I'll let you know what I'm going to read next. So, pardon how sweaty and red I am. I just went on a walk, and it is 90 degrees Fahrenheit here today, so it is hot. It's bright and sunny, so it's like very hot. But I finished on my walk Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I don't know my rating yet. I think I'm going to wait in this video till the end of the video to give you guys my rating. But I truly, truly enjoyed this. As I mentioned before, the characters are real standout characters for me. I love that the kind of third act conflict that you see in romance novels. In Talia Hibbert's books, they are specifically tied to previous traumas that the characters have gone through, and it makes it more believable that those characters would make those choices. And what I like about Talia Hibbert's books, which it may be helpful for you to know this, or you might consider it a spoiler, but the third act conflicts don't last that long in her books, which I really, truly enjoy because for me, I get a lot of anxiety when there's conflict in books. Even though I know it'll end positively, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want them to make up. So with her books, they're not very like long and drawn out. You typically have the characters going through a mental process of coming to terms with their choices and realizing how it's tied to their previous traumas and kind of coming back and altering what they meant to say. And they have such great conversations in her books. She always makes sure that every character is really aware of their situation and owns up to all of the conflict that they played part in, and I absolutely love that. Her male characters are just impeccable characters. They are my favorite parts of all of her books. Redford in the first one, Zach in the second one, and then Jacob in this one are my favorite parts. Although, of course, I love the sassy, unapologetically themselves and sarcastic Brown sisters. It's really just pure joy in books. And Eve was not any different. I really, really enjoyed her. I loved her kind of finding her own way and learning how to be an adult and fight back from all the voices that are in her head and are coming from around her. So great. And I love the way this book ended. It ended in a really unexpected but happy way. I thought I knew what was going to happen, and it took a turn. And I just really, really enjoyed that. So I highly recommend this. I will give you my official rating at the end of this video. And I'm going to pick up the second book for this reading vlog, and that is Hang the Moon by Alexandria Bellefour. Now, I have read Written in the Stars, which is, if you can see it here, is her previous book, and it was one of my favorites of last year. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic, and this book I think is going to be just as wonderful. I've seen fantastic reviews for it. And this book is all about Brendan, who is Darcy from the original, or from the first book. It's her brother. And Brendan runs this website, this dating website type thing, dating app maybe, called One True Pairing. And he is a true romantic at heart. He believes in true love. And he's kind of been going on all these dates with different women and just not finding that deeply passionate spark that he wants. And he is looking for that one person in his life. And then there's Annie, who she is Darcy's best friend, and she's not seen Brendan since they were 18, and she is kind of traveling around a whole lot, not settled anywhere, and is trying to figure out kind of what's going on in her life and where romance might fit in and whether it does at all. So I think that this will be absolutely beautiful. It takes place in the summertime, which is so exciting because Alexandria Bellefour's last book took place over the winter time, and I read it in winter, and this is a summertime book that I'm reading in the summer. So I think it'll be perfectly timed to my summer vacation, because I think it's kind of like Annie's summer vacation. So I'm going to get to reading of this, and I will update you as I read a little bit further.
So this book has these really cool, like, astrological chart, zodiac sign, kind of fun things at the beginning of the chapters. So I'm on chapter 3, and this is which romantic movie gesture are you based on your zodiac sign? And Sagittarius is the Beauty and the Beast's library access. We approve.
Good morning. I'm 100 pages into Hang the Moon, and I'm loving it. It definitely is more of like a traditional romance novel setup, where we have Annie, who doesn't believe in love. She doesn't want romance. She doesn't believe true love exists. She's very cynical. And then you have Brendan, who is sweet and romantic and just wants to prove to Annie that true love can exist and that romance isn't dead. And he is set out to accomplish this by taking Annie on a series of dates around Seattle to show her, recreate movie scenes, basically, from his favorite rom-com movies, to prove to her that romance isn't dead. And I am just loving it so far. I think that both of them as characters are a little more caricature-esque. This reads like a rom-com movie, like you're watching a romantic comedy, which I think is a completely different kind of vibe. Like, this is fun escapism, whereas Act Your Age, Eve Brown, like, what? Act Your Age, Eve Brown really made me think, which I like both of them. This is just a different thing, and I wanted to like point out that difference. But I think that what this does really well is set up this like romantic, you can tell from the very beginning what the like third act conflict is going to be, because Annie has a job offer in London that she's already accepted, and so she only really came to Seattle to see Darcy, who is Brendan's sister, and to spend some time with her for the last few weeks before she leaves for London. And she's moving there permanently. And so in addition to her not believing in love and not wanting romance, even though she is like instantly attracted to Brendan, she is leaving. And so she doesn't see a point in pursuing any kind of relationship with him. But he sees their immediate connection and the sparks that he's been missing from his previous relationships and is like, yes, this is what I want. This is what I'm looking for. I'm going to prove to her that romance is real and convince her to stay in Seattle. And it's just so much escapism, like summertime romance on a pier, riding a Ferris wheel kind of escapism, but with lots of really funny moments and really just emphasis on them being fun and funny and getting to know each other. And I just love that about this book. So I'm flying through it. I definitely want to keep reading. So I'm going to keep reading this today and I will update you once I've gotten to page 200. All right, update time. I am halfway through Hang the Moon and I'm loving it. It has so many of the kind of like old school rom-com tropes that I don't see in romance novels very often anymore, and I'm really enjoying them. For example, there's this kind of ongoing gag that you see sometimes in romance books where the couple is like about to kiss and something splits them up and somebody walks in or like something happens and that just keeps happening in this book. It is so cute. I'm halfway through and they've kissed once, so it's definitely not as steamy, nor did I expect it to be as steamy as a Talia Hibbert book. But I'm absolutely loving the like old school rom-com vibes of it. It's like the perfect fast-paced summer romance read and it's really really enjoyable. You can definitely I'm definitely like feeling more for Annie because at the beginning of this book it was kind of like I didn't vibe with her as much as I wanted to, only because she was so cynical about romance and about love, and she was like, well, I've never really been hurt before, so like it's not that I'm like hurt and avoiding love, it's that I just don't think romance is still alive. Like I don't think that true love exists. And I personally am like, obviously since I've been doing this vlog, am a very romance fan. I believe in true love and I like hold true to like that romance is real. And she just didn't click with me necessarily, but I completely understand her hesitation to pursue a relationship with Brendan because she has what she feels like this obligation to the job she committed to, as well as this job is kind of offering her part of what she wanted. So Annie does not like her job. She doesn't really want to pursue. She's an HR person and she's been traveling. By settling in London, she'll have like a place to settle and a home, even though it's far away from all of her friends and family. But she also feels like she doesn't really have a whole lot of friends and family who would care that she left. So that is kind of a negative self-talk happening for her. But then she thinks that this job, even though she doesn't really like the job aspect, is going to complete parts of what she wants. She wants a house. She wants a house plant and a pet, maybe. And she just wants to settle down somewhere. And so she's really struggling with the idea that if she were to choose not to take that and instead to stay in Seattle with Brendan, she would be starting completely over from scratch. She would have to find a new job. And she really wants to pursue a job in languages, like translation maybe. And it's really scary to completely switch your entire career, especially she's like late 20s. So she's like freaking out a little bit about the idea that is that even possible? Is that too spontaneous? Like she hasn't really known him for a long time, even though they've known each other technically since childhood. They haven't seen each other in like 8 years. So she doesn't feel like they can truly be in love after only knowing each other for a couple weeks. So it's definitely adding interesting layers. Like I said, I can see where the third act conflict is going to come in, but I think it's very fast paced and enjoyable. It's filled with a lot of like gags, a lot of funny moments that I can really picture. It gives me very like 27 Dresses vibes. So if you liked that style of rom-com, I think you would really like this book. So I'm going to get back to reading. Like I said, I'm just kind of spending the day reading. And I'm going to get back to reading it. Although, fun fact, I was just looking at this and Talia Hibbert blurbed the back of the book. Would you look at that? Maybe it will get steamy. Let's wait and see.
Update. I finished Hang the Moon and I absolutely loved it. I'm going to give it 4.5 stars. This book is just so sweet. And in the last 100 pages, there was quite a bit of angst. I think the last 100 pages really were lacking in a little bit of something for me. I think maybe it was lacking in, I don't know, communication or something like that. It just seemed like a little bit of a stretch, but I loved the grand gesture. I loved how at the end the character arc for both characters was complete, and the epilogue holds a very special place in my heart because in the epilogue they mention Disneyland Paris as a honeymoon. And that's where I went on my honeymoon. So it's just very special to me and holds a special place in my heart. I thought it was sweet. I thought this book was sexy and had beautiful, whimsical characters and adventures. And I just highly recommend this. It definitely lived up to the hype in my mind.
Fun update. I have just had some Amazon packages delivered, so I'm going to open those because they both are fairly small and thin. So I'm almost positive that they are books. So I'm going to open those, do a fun little unboxing. I ordered all these books, so don't get excited like somebody sent me something. Oh my gosh, that one's absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so the first one is It's Been a Pleasure, Noni Blake by Claire Christian. This is like a contemporary romance with more of an edge towards contemporary. There is a romance in here, but it's really like all about helping yourself and being like more positive. Love that. I also got Song of the Forever Rains by E.J. Mello, which I just finished. It is a fantasy romance. Absolutely stunning. It was beautiful and gorgeous. It had a beautiful fantasy world. It's book 1 of a 3-part series that follows each of the sisters. So this book follows Larkira. Larkira and Darius are just beautiful. Next, so I could have my own copies of these books because I have to go return my copies to the library today, actually. I bought Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert and Hang the Moon. So I now have my own copies of these books, and I'm so happy that I do because, as you know, I really loved both of them. So I'm very excited. All 4 of these books are romance books. So that's great. I'm super happy that I now own all of them. And I have read and loved all of these books. So I can definitely say that I recommend any of them. Okay, now back to reading.
Okay, like I said in my introduction, I got a concussion. My life is fun. But some time has passed, and I believe it is time to just conclude this vlog because here's the thing. I read these books. I just didn't vlog the experience, and I feel bad about it, but I didn't want to scrap the video because I want to talk to you about these books. I just feel bad that I didn't vlog. So, sorry that I got a concussion, everybody. Life is uncontrollable sometimes, and what are you going to do? So let's start with One Last Stop. This book, I think, was such a great story. It was unlike any other romance novel that I have read. This book is all about August, and August is 23. She is moving to New York to kind of get away from her mom, who is very overbearing and has had this like lifelong search basically for August's entire life to find August's uncle. August's uncle, who goes by Augie, has been missing for August's entire life, and August's mom is dedicated to finding him and figuring out what happened to him. And August is kind of just really overburdened by that. Like, her mom consistently is like bringing her into all of these like CSI situations and is like using her to get information, and August is just ready to go out on her own and like have new experiences and figure out her own life. But she does move to New York feeling a little bit kind of let down by the world and a little bit of an outsider. She doesn't think she's very normal. She answers this ad for roommates, and I'm going to read the ad to you because it is my favorite ad, and it's literally the beginning of chapter 1. It says, taped to a trash can inside the Popeyes Louisiana kitchen at the corner of Parkside and Flatbush Avenues. Seeking young single roommate for 3-bedroom apartment upstairs, 6th floor, $700 a month. Must be queer and trans friendly. Must not be afraid of fire or dogs. No Libras. We already have one. Call Nico. It is just so funny, and it perfectly describes the group of friends that August is like getting into a situation with. So August moves to New York and is kind of up in the air. Maybe will be attending school, hasn't really decided what she wants to do. Moves in with this group of people, and immediately they are like the perfect friend group filling for August. Like, they take her in and just like accept her so quickly. Heartwarming. And I will come back to the friendships in a moment because they are peak. And I've talked about them before on my channel, and I stand by it. I stand by everything I said. So the friend group takes her in, and they kind of take her to, on her first night there, take her to this like little diner, this little pancake diner, and they are hiring. So August gets a job there, and that kind of starts off her story. And so while she's working at this diner, it's a 24-hour diner, no matter what time she gets on the subway to go to work, she always sees Jane, who is this like leather jacket, ripped jeans, like hair pushed back, perfect, ideal woman on the subway. And August is kind of like immediately enamored by her, as are many people, because Jane is so charismatic and just really welcoming. And in fact, when they first meet, August has spilled coffee on her shirt, and so Jane gives her the scarf. It causes this like kind of insta love connection between them. They have like chemistry immediately. It is so great. They think they have the same subway route, the same commute to work. August and Jane, well, Jane really tells August later on in the story that she is in fact not getting off of the subway and lives there because she is stuck in a time loop on the subway since 1970s. Crazy, crazy. So there's like a little sci-fi element going on in this book. That is a very long-winded explanation of this story, but it is kind of all you need to know for the basis because it sets you up for expecting things to get a little weird, expecting things to be a little romantic, and really just focusing on two queer girls who are figuring stuff out. Like, they are just both very lost and confused. Like, neither of them has it all together, and I loved that about them. So let's start my thoughts about this book on what I thought about the romantic side of the book. So Jane and August, I think, are stellar characters. I think that Casey Mcquisten does a really good job of building beautiful characters that are fully rounded and really fleshed out. I think both characters were dealing with so much struggle and so much additional angst in their own personal lives. They had full, complete backstories that they carried with them into novels. So what I think a lot of books struggle to do is carry that backstory with the characters as they go through this romantic relationship. It's almost like people will meet someone in a romance novel and immediately like become a different person almost. And I think that both of these characters really stayed true to who they were. And August was always a little bit unsure. Jane was always very like cocky, but had this kind of underlying question of who am I and like, do I deserve what I'm being given in life? And of course, Jane doesn't know why she's stuck in this time loop. So August kind of makes it her mission to solve how Jane got stuck on this train and how to get her back to the 1970s. Them falling in love definitely complicates things. But I loved the conflict and the angst in this book. Falling in love with someone who is from a different time and trying to get them to go back home is already so stressful. Like, that is such a tense moment. But then you add in this element of not knowing if it's going to work, and this is a huge mystery, and you have no idea what's going on, and then they fall in love with you too. Beautiful. And I think the best part about this is that neither of them really knows what they want, and they both have to make really awful, horrible decisions. Like, Jane, if she chooses to stay, if she even could choose to stay with August, she's giving up the chance to go back and make things right with her family. And if she chooses to go back to her family, she's losing this new, more accepting world. She is struggling because she wants to feel safe walking outside and being open about her sexuality, and when the world she came from just wasn't like that. And so it's definitely a very tough choice, and that adds an extra element to it as well, that it's two women in this book who are really struggling to find themselves and fall in love with each other. It was just they're perfect. They're beautiful, perfect beings. They're complete on their own, and then together they are absolutely electric. Then we have the friend group in this book, which is, in my opinion, the best part, and Casey Mcquisten's really strong points in writing, because they write side characters that, again, are just really fantastic characters that add a wonderful element to the story and are not just props for the main characters to use. There were beautiful romances and the side characters. They had full lives and different quirks about them that I thought made them so special and unique. They were not just paper cutout people. They had interests. They had little weird things that made them who they are. And they all connected and formed as a group so perfectly. They all filled out this group, and it was just so comforting. It was like every time the friend group was together, I felt like warm and fuzzy on the inside. I loved it. The friend group is top tier friend group status. Like, this is the friend group I would want to have. Out of any book I've read, if I could pick a friend group, it would be the one in One Last Stop. So wonderful. And there's my favorite scene from this book, which I definitely would have told you about if I was vlogging, is this scene where, in order to raise money for something that I will not tell you about because it's a spoiler, they have a drag show, and it sounds like the most magical night, the most magical experience of anybody's life, and I am so mad that I didn't get to go to it in real life, that it's not a real event, because although I have been to some drag shows and I really, really love them, this one was otherworldly. You have to read this book to find out, because the drag show portion of this book was supreme. And then the last thing I kind of want to talk about is the sci-fi element, this time travel element, because that was probably the thing that kept this from being 5 stars. I ended up giving it 4.5. The sci-fi element of this was very interesting, well thought out, and very well explained, but the book is a little bit long, in my opinion. And the sci-fi element, I think, adds quite a bit to that. Not that I wish Casey Mcquisten would have explained it less, because I like that we can, like, kind of thoroughly understand what's going on. I just found myself skimming those parts, because the explanation of how Jane got stuck on the subway and how scientifically they're going to get her off of it, it just really bogged me down a little bit while reading. So although this book I thought was very close to perfect, I thought it was a little bit long, but I really, really enjoyed it. Okay, and then the other book that I was going to read for this vlog was People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I did read this, and I think in the end, I'm going to give it 4 stars. I almost want to say 3.5, but I'm not going to, because I do think it deserves 4 stars. It's just that I read this, like, not too long ago, and I really am struggling to, like, remember a lot of things about it. But let's talk about what this book is about, first of all. So this book is all about Poppy and Alex, who were really good friends from college on, and now they have been friends for years, and I think like 13 years. But 2 years ago, on a vacation that they take annually, every summer they go on vacation together as like a friend trip, and 2 years ago, something happened on their trip that really blew up their friendship, and they did not speak very much other than like a happy birthday text for the next 2 years. Well, then we have Poppy, who is working on this, like, at this travel agency, and she has to take this trip, and so she thinks of Alex and wants to kind of rekindle their friendship. And so she asks Alex to go with her, and he says yes, And this book follows them on that vacation as they are kind of rekindling this friendship. It also follows them every summer leading up to that as they go on their trips. So that was my favorite part of this book, because rather than just having like the story of now where we're getting little pieces that come out about their story during the present moment, we are seeing every other chapter for the most part going back in time 12 years and then slowly building up to the moment that we find out what happens. And in the meantime, you're getting to experience their friendship growing into something more. You can see the moment that they both fall in love with each other and are just, their friendship is so important to both of them that they aren't willing to give up that friendship in order to take a chance on love. Even though they both are feeling it so strongly, they just don't want to do anything to lose that friendship. So they both are just kind of staying friends and like trying to keep things platonic. They bring other people into this friendship throughout their years together. We see different relationships kind of pop up. And in this book, you only are getting Poppy's point of view. So we're really just seeing all of the vacations from Poppy's experience. But I loved traveling with them, going to all these different places with both of the characters and watching their friendship blossom. It was really a fantastic part of the story and probably my favorite part. Then we have Alex and Poppy's relationship in the present moment, which I thought was interesting. But it felt very, I don't know, I don't even really know how to put into words how I feel about this, because obviously we know something happened a few years before the start of this present day. And when Poppy calls Alex and is like, hey, do you want to like come on this vacation with me? He immediately says yes. And it all felt very like instantaneous to me, which I know they have a lot of history together. It just didn't feel like, I didn't feel like I as a reader was prepared for them to like have this immediate reconciliation. I felt like there needed to be more of a build up to them pursuing a relationship. I felt like maybe we needed to like work through some of those issues before they like really dug into this present day relationship, either as friends or more than that. It kind of just picked up where they left off, and although they kept saying something happened 2 years ago that really disrupted their friendship, they're not acting like it did. They are in like moments, but like not really. And so I think that is what kind of put me off from this book, like from connecting to this book super well. But like I said, the structure was really, really good. The voices in this book were wonderful. Like I loved Alex as a character. Alex is my favorite male character in a romance novel right now because he is like a sweet baby angel. He carries her down a mountain. He carries her down a mountain. He is a hero, and I love him. I love him. Poppy, also kind of cool, but like her character to me just doesn't stick with me. Like Alex stuck with me. Poppy kind of just faded. And I didn't love the conflict in this book because it just felt like I understood it. I understood the conflict in this book, but I've been finding myself really connecting more to stories where the conflict builds up from past traumas and they have to like work through those traumas together rather than having like this big blow up where it's like, I'm gonna go my way and you go yours and we'll find each other whenever we work through our stuff. Like it just, I don't know. It was just a little bit of an overblown third act conflict, in my opinion. But overall, I really enjoyed their relationship. I really enjoyed the past summers and the format of this book building up from the past all the way up to the future. And ultimately, I think this book deserves the high rating it's getting. It just wasn't necessarily the perfect romance for me. All together now, let's talk about the books I read. So we had Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert, which in the end, I think I'm going to give 4 stars. I really loved it. Jacob is one of my favorite characters now. But again, it's just one that like didn't really, really stick with me. So I'm going to give this one 4 stars. Hang the Moon. This is kind of like a comfort read for me almost. And I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. It has very sentimental value to me, as I mentioned. One Last Stop by Casey Mcquisten, I gave 4.5 stars. And People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, I gave 3.5 to 4. If I gave 0.75s, I would give it a 3.75. These are the books that I read for this reading vlog, and I am so happy that I got to read 4 of my most anticipated romance books of 2021 all in this vlog and got to tell you about them. Overall, it was a fantastic ride. Like, I'm so happy that I read all of these books and that I own all of them and can come back to them in the future. So thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, share this video with anyone who you think would enjoy it, and I will see you next time. Bye, friends!